Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Feeling a little lost in the constant storm of headlines? Yeah, me too sometimes. That's what we're here for. Today, we're going deep, deep into the U.S. v. Trump indictment, the one about the 2020 election. That case everyone's talking about.
Right, is generating a lot of buzz.
Basically, it's saying that former President Trump, along with six unnamed others, they call them co-conspirators, were part of a plan, a criminal conspiracy, to try to overturn the 2020 election results. It's a big deal, and it gets complicated fast, so we're here to unpack it all. We'll dig into the details they don't always put in the headlines, the stuff that'll make you say, wait, really?
Sounds good. People need that context to really understand.
Right. So, you're not just skimming the surface. We want to make sure you understand why this case matters. Luckily, we've got an expert with us to help make sense of it all. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
So let's dive right in. This indictment throws four charges at Trump, each one pretty serious. We're talking conspiracy to defraud the United States, obstruction of an official proceeding.
Conspiracy to interfere with rights, and conspiracy to obstruct and impede the certification of the electoral vote.
Whoa, yeah, you got them all. Those are some serious accusations. Can you break those down for us? I mean, what do these charges actually mean, in plain English?
Sure, I can understand why those sound intimidating. Basically, what the indictment is alleging is that Trump knew he lost, but he was involved in illegal things to try and cling to power. Each charge is like a piece of that bigger picture.
Okay, so take that first one. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. Sounds like a spy movie. What's that actually mean, legally speaking?
I know, right? It does have a dramatic ring to it. But really, it boils down to this. The government thinks there was a deliberate plan involving Trump and others to mess with a lawful government function. In this case, the peaceful transition of power after an election.
So, even if you're not a legal expert, you get that messing with how our government works is a big no-no.
Right. Think of it this way, even on a smaller scale. Say, some folks try to rig a local election for their candidate. Fake documents, messing with vote counts, that sort of thing, could fall under that same charge, defrauding the U.S. Of course, this is the presidential election, so way bigger stakes.
Makes sense. It's about protecting the system no matter who's trying to game it.
Exactly. Then you've got obstruction of an official proceeding, which is about what happened on January 6th with Congress and certifying the election results.
January 6th. Hard to even think about this indictment without that day looming large.
Absolutely. Those events are closely tied to the allegations here. That charge is saying they believe there were actual efforts to stop that certification process from happening.
And hold on, we've got two more, right? Conspiracy to interfere with rights, and then one about obstructing the electoral vote certification. Sound kind of similar to me. What's the difference?
Yeah, they do touch on related ideas.
Yeah.
So that first one, broadly, it's about protecting everyone's right to vote and have that vote count. The indictment says Trump and his co-conspirators were in on a plan to basically disenfranchise voters, take away that fundamental right.
So making sure everyone who's supposed to vote can vote and that their vote matters. Pretty basic stuff to a democracy.
Exactly. Now, the last charge, conspiracy to obstruct and impede the certification of the electoral vote. That's really zeroing in on the official process of making the election results official, saying they actively tried to disrupt that so the rightful winner couldn't take office.
Got it. So just to be clear, this wasn't like Trump just sending angry tweets or giving speeches, right? This is about him actually trying to pressure people, maybe even influence what went down on January 6th.
Yeah, this gets into what the indictment calls 3 criminal conspiracies. And yeah, they go way beyond just words. It was a whole plan, supposedly, with multiple ways to try to overturn the election.
3 criminal conspiracies sounds intense, like a movie or a play, 3 acts. Where do we even start with that?
It's a good way to think about it. So Act 1. That focuses on how they allegedly pressured state officials, especially in those swing states that were close, to try and get them to overturn their results.
So Arizona, Georgia, those places. I know Biden won those by a pretty slim margin. They were important.
Hugely important, yeah. And what makes it even crazier is the indictment claims that behind closed doors, Trump knew he hadn't actually won, that the fraud claims were bogus.
Hold on, wait. So he's allegedly telling these officials to go against what the voters in their states say based on info each he knows isn't even true? How'd they think that was going to fly?
That's what makes it so mind-boggling. They're saying despite being told over and over, nope, not true, he kept pushing. It's remarkable.
Wow, that is wild. Talk about being in denial. So that's Act 1, the pressure campaign. What's Act 2 in this alleged plot?
Act 2 takes us into fake elector territory. And that's where things get really interesting.
Fake electors. Okay, for folks who don't have that term memorized, what does that even mean?
Sure, so the Electoral College, they're the ones who actually officially pick the president, right?
Hmm.
Each state gets a certain number of these electors based on its population. Usually, whoever wins the popular vote in a state, their electors are the ones who go on to vote for them. In this situation, they were trying to say, no, we've got different electors, they'll vote for Trump, even though he lost those states, just trying to cause enough chaos to throw the whole thing off.
Creating a fake controversy to try and win. Bold move.
Bold's one word for it. Co-conspirators 5 and 6, they're the big players in this act. And what they did is pretty wild. Like, there are these memos from co-conspirator 5, and they start out as a legal strategy, but gradually morph into this plan for the fraudulent electors.
Pushing the limits of the law is putting it lightly. Man, this is complicated. I need a whiteboard and like a whole team to keep track of it all. It's like a political thriller come to life. Okay, so Act 3, where does that take us?
Act 3 is all about the Justice Department
Yeah.
and how they supposedly tried to use them to their advantage.
So basically, weaponizing the Justice Department, what they even DO, according to this indictment.
That's what they're alleging. They're saying Trump, along with this co-conspirator 4, this person was a Justice Department official at the time. They tried to use the department's power, their authority, to make people doubt the election.
So they're trying to use the Justice Department, which is supposed to be all about like fairness and law and all that, to push their own agenda. Have we ever even seen anything like that, historically speaking?
That's what's so alarming about it. The Justice Department, they're supposed to uphold the law, right? Trying to use them for political gain, that undermines like the whole foundation of our democracy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there have been times when presidents, they clashed with the Justice Department, it happens. But this was different, allegedly. Trying to manipulate them to overturn an election. Almost unheard of in modern U.S. history.
That is deeply unsettling, to say the least. And of course, all of this leads us right to January 6th, a day that's, well, forever seared into everyone's minds. How does the indictment say Trump was acting leading UP to that day, especially with Pence?
This is where it gets even more disturbing. They're saying Trump put huge pressure on Pence to just refuse to certify the results, to overturn the election during that electoral vote count.
But like we talked about before, Pence doesn't actually have the power to do that, does he?
Nope. His role's mostly ceremonial. But they're claiming Trump kept pushing him, saying just accept these fake electors or send it back to the states, basically asking him to go against the Constitution.
So even with everything going on, Trump's still convinced he can swing this thing, even though he's been told repeatedly, dude, no.
That's what it sounds like. And what's maybe most disturbing, they're saying when Pence refused, Trump basically threw him under the bus publicly at that rally right before the Capitol attack.
God, those chants hang Mike Pence still gives me chills.
Right. It shows you how dangerous all this misinformation, all this pressure, how dangerous it really was.
It's hard to even put into words how serious that day was and everything leading up to it. So, switching gears a bit, let's talk about those 6 co-conspirators. We still don't know who they are, right? What can you tell us?
Right. They're unnamed in the indictment. But it does give some hints about what they did. They describe them as lawyers, political consultants, even someone from the Justice Department, which tells you this thing went way up high. Lots of influence involved.
So it's like this whole web of people, each playing their part. Anything else strike you as particularly interesting about how they were involved?
One thing, and it's kind of a head-scratcher, is they haven't come forward, these co-conspirators. Still unnamed. Could mean they're cooperating with the investigation, which that could change everything about how this case goes.
It's a lot, right? Like, wow, this isn't just some open and shut case. This feels huge not just for Trump, but for, America. So, final thoughts. Where do things even go from here?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This goes way beyond just one election. This is about how power changes hands peacefully, about the rule of law, the whole future of democracy, really, in this country. But we got to remember, these are still just allegations at this point, right? Trump's presumed innocent. He's got a right to a fair trial, just like anyone else.
Right, absolutely. Can't forget that. But okay, so what's NXT? What are the actual steps in this whole legal process?
So the next big thing is the arraignment. That's where Trump actually shows up in court. They read the charges to him. He says how he pleads, guilty, not guilty, all that.
The dramatic court scene. TV always makes a big deal out of that.
Exactly. Then it's a whole pre-trial phase, and that can drag on. Witness interviews, gathering evidence, lawyers on both sides going back and forth. Could be a while, assuming it even gets that far. Could be a plea deal. It could get dismissed for some reason, you never know.
And if it does go to trial, that could be years from now, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely a possibility. These big, complicated cases, they take time to work through the system.
So while we're all waiting with bated breath, what should we be paying attention to specifically? What could this mean in the long run, even beyond Trump himself?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? This has the potential to totally change how we think about accountability,
Yeah.
especially for people in power. And it could affect how much people even trust, like our institutions, our elections. This could echo for a long, long time.
Like a domino effect, one thing leads to another, way bigger than just this one case.
Exactly. Watch how the media covers this, how people talk about it, how it might even play into elections to come. It's all connected.
Man, this whole deep dive, it really makes you think. And that's kind of the point, isn't it? This indictment, it's not just legal stuff. It's about our democracy, what we believe in, where we go from here. So what are your takeaways, listeners? What are you thinking about after all this? This conversation, it doesn't end when we stop recording. Keep thinking about it, ask questions, talk to people. Um, the future of democracy depends on U.S. staying engaged,